Hello, Ntsolo.
Hello, sister. How are
How are
you?
you?
Great, thanks. And you?
I'm great, thank you. How's Luxembourg?
Well, Luxembourg was tricky. It threw a trick at us. It was hot in the morning, sun
Yeah.
was out, and then the weather has now changed. So we're dealing with overcast conditions. So
Oh
we continue.
gosh, sounds very similar to Johannesburg this afternoon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
No,
it was,
different
it was
vibes.
warmer in the morning, but now you can see the rain is coming again.
Oh, no.
Again.
Okay.
But Ntsolo, thank you so much. Thank you, brother.
No, it's a
Because I
pleasure,
fondly
sister.
get to talk to you as brother. So thank you so much for being with us today.
No, thank
And
you.
joining our community, our Kanyapukoyo community. So generally, I think what I do is I start off just by briefly introducing my esteemed guest, ne? But today, I think we'll do it slightly different because if I had to start talking about you, we would be here until tomorrow. So please, just over to you. Just tell us a little bit about who you are before we get into the very juicy questions. So a little bit about who Ntsolo is and where Ntsolo comes from.
Okay, sure. It's always tricky on this one. How far back does one go?
Yeah,
So I guess I will start with where I was born. As you know, sister,
yeah,
born in Kokstad, but from Adatiela,
yeah,
actually from Maluti, live in
yeah,
Maluti Township.
yeah.
And from there, attended prep school in Kokstad and Patrick's, and from there moved on to my class from my high school. Had a wonderful 5 years there, and then moved on to UCT and had a wonderful university life as well. After that, sort of started working and started my professional career in Cape Town.
Okay.
And then from there, transferred across to Luxembourg after a couple of years. And
Yeah.
I've been here since, from a
Good.
secondment to now 8 years in Luxembourg. So
Sure.
it's the journey.
And it's gone by so quickly, right?
It has,
It's
it really has. But
crazy. It's
it's been great. It's
crazy.
been exciting.
Sure. So you've lived a full life, brother. But yeah, I think, let's get right into it. So obviously you are from South Africa, you're from Matatiele, but you
Yes.
found yourself moving across all the way across the world to Europe. So maybe
Yeah.
just share with us, what was some of the most challenging parts, of your transition from South Africa to Europe? And I would love to hear both personally, but also maybe professionally, please.
Sure, sure. So maybe I suppose start off personally.
Mm,
I guess personally, it's you're moving your whole life, right? So I think the biggest challenge there was leaving family, leaving friends, leaving a whole life that was evolving in South Africa.
yeah,
So of course you're weighing up opportunity, but at the same time you're leaving a whole lot.
yeah,
So that was the tricky part from a personal perspective.
yeah,
Um, and then I think if you jump to the professional piece, I think the cultural shift.
yeah,
Um, I think the benefit of having grown up in South Africa is that you live in a multicultural environment, and so you learn quite quickly to traverse different cultures, races,
yeah,
socioeconomic backgrounds.
yeah,
But it's different, right?
yeah.
And so it was just getting used to what's the French way, what's the Germanic way,
Mm,
learning to work in part in French
sure.
and in German in parts with colleagues. How do colleagues work?
Sure.
I'm a
Language
guy who
barriers, I
likes
would
to,
imagine.
of course, yeah, yeah.
Sure.
I'm a guy who likes to walk to people's tables and have a conversation. So it was just adjusting to that, understanding culturally what are people's sort of barriers, how close can you get to people, which people to prefer a little bit of distance.
Yeah.
So I think professionally it was a cultural adjustment, but I think coming from South Africa, I recall looking around and I saw quite quickly that South Africans and their various communities are sort of the social lubricant.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because of the context that we all grew up in.
Yeah.
So I think to long answer short, I'd say it's the cultural adjustment professionally that was a bit tricky.
Yeah. Okay. And many years later, I figure you've obviously found your place, right?
Yes, yes, I think so. You know, when I arrived, I sort of looked at it and said, what's the best way to meet people?
Yeah.
How do I find my community?
Yeah.
At the time, I'd stopped playing sports, so I'd stopped playing rugby, but
Yeah.
I plugged back into that. So I plugged back into the local rugby club,
Yeah.
and sort of soon find my community, and was able to use that as the way to integrate quite quickly into the society, and
Yeah.
professionally as
Yeah.
well. Got involved in a lot of cultural activities, so that was a great help.
Yeah. I always talk about how representation is so important, right? Because when I see somebody that looks like me, somebody that has a similar background like yourself to myself, then
Mm-hmm.
there's possibly someone out there who's saying, listen, if he can do it, he can move from South Africa, from rural areas, and today he works in financial services in Europe, then surely, maybe I also can. And brother, what advice then, would you give somebody who is in South Africa who possibly wants to break into the financial services industry abroad?
I would say at the core of it is people,
People.
right? I think having the humility to be open to learning from others. I think
Okay.
that's at the core of it. I mean, when we all start off working, uh, there is things that we know from an academic
Yeah.
perspective, but there's a lot that we don't,
Yeah.
and the practical application of that we don't know. So
Yeah.
I think one would be open to learning, network with the people that are around you. But then again, I mean, I guess going from South Africa to a global context, be it Europe or elsewhere,
Yeah.
um, I would say signaling devices are important. So that being qualifications. I
Okay.
think those help you to get into rooms, and by
Okay.
getting into rooms, I think they get you to an interview.
Yes.
This signal to the people that are hiring that you are competent in terms of the basic skill.
Yes.
So I'm a big fan of qualifications
Yeah.
as a signaling device. So I'd really push that. And then I'd say to stay globally connected. Be aware of what the global economy is doing. Be aware of what jobs are generally are opening up globally, not just in a
Okay.
South African context.
Okay.
So I think those two things,
Yeah.
have a global overview of where you want to go, and really focus on the signaling devices, and then present as honestly as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very useful. Very, very useful. You're such a humble guy, and so you almost like scheme through certain things, and one of them being the fact that you played rugby. You played rugby at school level, and you actually captained the first team. You went on to play rugby at university, captained that side, and then you went to Europe and you played for the country that you have moved to, which is incredible, and well done, brother. Really, I mean, that's a big deal. And I know you'll always, downplay those successes, but really, we're so proud of you. But really talking to rugby and you playing rugby, how has that, being a rugby player, really shaped your approach either to leadership and some of the team dynamics? And how have you taken those learnings into the corporate space?
Thanks, sister. Some of those things seem like they were a long time ago, to be fair.
Yeah.
Was a bit of a throwback, but yeah, all things that obviously that I'm proud of, regardless. I would say, from a rugby playing perspective, the importance of team. Um, I think I was in environments where I was never the most talented, um, but what really was important is the team,
Mm.
and everyone's contribution into that.
Yeah.
So I think accountability was something that we really pushed in our different environments,
Yeah.
and the importance of no one individual is more important than the other. I was
Yeah.
fortunate to play with highly talented individuals, but
Yeah.
at the core of it was also remaining humble, whether in defeat or victory, was
Yeah.
super important. The importance of team, and then just moving on with the job, right? We celebrate in the moment. We've super focused on keeping things simple. And once that thing is complete, we celebrate, we have a good time, and then we move on to the next one. So
Yeah.
I think those were the key aspects. But I think from a rugby perspective, it was always the importance of team over the individual, and we look out for each other. Um, and in a professional context, that really translates, right? Um, Pulling each other along as you go across. I'm strong in other areas, colleagues are stronger in others.
Yeah.
So really building that ethos was really important.
Yeah. Okay. So, still talking school, still talking, some of what you've gone on to do. So you were part of history, right? So I know that because of my relationship, that you were actually the first person of color to be the head boy at a very late school at Michael House. So with that, being the first of it's obviously it's a big responsibility, but how did that responsibility at such a young age shape either just your leadership philosophy? So what were some of them? Maybe share with us just the key moment, from being a head boy. How did that shape your leadership philosophy?
I think, firstly, I think, yes, being the first of was something I was incredibly proud of. But I think there were some incredibly talented individuals before me as well, who supported me in that journey as well. So I also, it's important to acknowledge that there was a history in that school of very, very strong leaders.
Yeah.
Probably not in name, but before really strong leaders for the school. So that's really important.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say in terms of how it shaped me, I think a really important aspect of, I often think back to some of for those who might not know how the schools typically work, you have sort of a senior leadership team, and that team is seen as the senior prefects, and then you name what you call a head boy, senior prefect.
Yeah.
But my learnings in there were very similar to the rugby context as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
By name, you are the leader of that team. But once you step into that environment, once you step into those meetings, once decisions need to be made, conversations need to be had, it's about the mix. It's about the team. It's about having very strong individuals in that room,
Okay.
their ideas coming into play.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the titles go out the window. And at the end of the day, you arrive at a solution together.
Yeah.
So I think what I learned, and we had a couple of decisions that we need to make throughout the year. What I learned was the importance of having a very open table that everyone is comfortable to speak around. The importance of the leader not needing to act like the leader in such a way.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who doesn't try speak over everyone. I like to listen more than I like to speak. And so it was a good way for me to learn and to strengthen my skills in that part.
Yeah.
And then also the importance of sponsorship.
Mm.
Sponsorship in terms of when we were making decisions. I mean, we're 18 years old at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? But the importance of our sponsors who are in that room to listen to our view as well and to take that seriously,
Yeah.
and help us to enact decisions. And I think in the corporate and professional, that's even more important, right? It's important to lead downwards and upwards as well.
Yeah.
To have your sponsors that will help you along the journey.
Yeah. So you speak about sponsors. So in a working environment, do you as an individual go out and seek someone out to be a sponsor? Does it happen naturally? Like, how does that work? And also, what is the role of a sponsor?
Sure. So I think firstly I was fortunate in that coming into the first company I worked for that
Yeah.
I met my sponsor, and was the reason I moved to the company in the first place,
Right.
through a chance encounter, I would say.
Yeah.
And then what that individual really helped me, I'll speak about my experience, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll speak more
Yeah.
broadly.
Please. Yeah.
It's someone who sort of always had my back, but wasn't too close to the work that I did. So the
Okay.
door was always open.
Oh.
Um, he sort of gave me the view that, okay, this is the lay of the land.
Yeah.
These are the areas that I would suggest that you go into. And these are the attributes that I see in you and where I see that you could really make a difference. Yeah. So that's, I think, the value of a sponsor, but it's a two-way relationship, I think.
Yeah.
There also was the sponsor needed to see for me that I had also buy-in on my own journey.
Yeah.
That I was committed to my own journey, and that there wasn't this reliance that you're going to help me along the way. Right.
Yeah.
It was just a case of knock on this door every now and then,
yeah.
Go back and forth. And what was great was across the board, professionally, personally, able to exchange. So you have this rapport.
Yeah.
And then a key elements, that individual being able to guide you on what would be the best option.
Sure.
At some point, I was going to move to Johannesburg before I moved to Luxembourg.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate that at that point, my sponsor and mentor was able to guide me.
Oh, wow.
Then I think then at a more, when it comes to decision making on a day-to-day basis, I think the sponsors really, before you get into the room, it's good to know that you have the support of a few individuals within the room. I mean, it's not really rocket science.
Yes.
But having that extra voice to back you in that room is super powerful.
Okay, sure. That's incredible. So sponsors are very important people for one to have. Yeah. Brother, you speak, hey?
In my experience, yes.
In your experience, no, for sure. and brother, you speak about some attributes, that, a sponsor would have, they articulated to you that, listen, there were certain attributes that they saw in you. And obviously those are positive attributes, right? And maybe you can share with us, what are some of those attributes personally that you feel have stood you in great stead, both personally and professionally?
I think probably the most important is, the two most important are to be curious and to have a good work ethic. I think curiosity, perhaps most importantly throughout your career. I think someone who's naturally curious, be it socially or professionally, socially, you're able to navigate the work environment. You're able to work with people from different backgrounds. And then professionally, it allows you to be nimble within your own organization and broadly within industry that you may be in. A natural curiosity will allow you to be a very good problem solver. And really, this is what is required in the business, certainly that I'm involved in. So I think curiosity. From my studies, I'm from political science background, with some economics, and then sort of did the MBA. But traditionally, I'm not someone who should be in the finance space. And so it's that, I guess, that curiosity at a very young stage of my career that was super important. And then the ethic, right? The ability, people see that you are willing to work hard. And then thirdly, it's the humility to be open to learning, and from everyone in the organization. I think you can immediately tell who those individuals are in an organization. If you're willing to Torba and go to someone and have the conversation, you build up a social currency there, and it's trust that's really important in an organization. So I'd say maybe those three things are the most important.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Have been for me. Yeah.
Thank you for that. It goes so quickly, this 30 minutes. It's actually crazy. But I do have one other question for you. I think, your journey obviously, wouldn't have been smooth sailing. So maybe just to share with us, please, what were some of the challenges to date, and how have you tried to navigate or work through those?
Yes, I think that's a very important question. I think it's very easy to talk about, as we track on in our career, the things that go well. but certainly there have been challenges along the way. I think what I've learned along the way is that often in difficult times,
Yeah.
in times where you feel overwhelmed, in times where you feel might be too much, those have been the periods of intense growth. Um, so my view on challenges has changed somewhat, not always easy.
Yeah.
But when you're really in it,
Yeah.
that's to acknowledge that, oh, this is the growth that's coming along.
Yeah.
And just to dig into that, to try and be present in that, and understand that the storm will end and you'll come out the storm a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
I think the importance of having a strong support structure, whether that be your family, whether that be your friends, whether that be your partners, is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And your ability to humble yourself and lean into that.
Yeah.
Allow people to help you when you're struggling. Because struggle does come, and there's no need for us to act like we're stronger than anyone else around.
Yeah.
It comes. Lean on your people and be present in that moment, and understand that at the end of it all, the sun will shine and we'll be stronger for it. So in the periods where I've had difficulty, had failure, had challenge, I've certainly learned a lot about myself, and certainly haven't always dealt with it in the right way, but certainly working towards leaning into those things that I speak about there.
So, brother, I could speak to you all day, but I appreciate you so much. I love you so much. You know that. I think you're an incredible human being. I think you're an incredible leader. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us for the couple of minutes. Really, really appreciate it. Until next time.
Until next time. No, and thank you. Thank you to you as well for inviting me. Mpugolo and Jody were a tough act to follow.
Yes, they were,
so
right?
The pressure was on, you know.
The pressure
So
was on.
I hope I did my little bit there.
Of course.
And yeah, and really, you know, I remember when we were talking about this platform, and when you're talking about this idea, the point of putting out content that speaks to people who are very much on the journey, the hardships, the good times, so that we can bring each other along, you know. I think it's this type of platform is really important. Often we see the content that's out there and it glorifies some things, but thank you for this, and yeah, I will continue to be there, my sister. I love it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Cheers, cheers. We'll speak again.
Cheers.
Okay, brother.
Right.
Cheers. Bye.